Hi, and welcome to the Digital Jobsite, where the boards are straight, the weather's great, and there really is a board stretcher. This is the video segment of a blog post at the Digital Jobsite at finehomebuilding.com that I'm titling A Tale of Two Pitches, which looks into the complexities that are generated when a off-framing roof situation is required. And in this first video, we'll take a look at some of the variables that necessitate this off-angle roof framing and how those angles and things are generated. And then in the second video, I'll peel back the layers of this model, like peeling back the layers of an onion, and look at all the framing components, rafter configurations and such that are necessary to create an off-angle roof framing situation. So to get started on this part one, I'm going to shut off the shadows to keep the model from bogging down so bad, and I think we'll just hide Bryce up here by shutting off a decorations layer. That way we don't have to worry about him falling off the roof while we're working on it. But the first point that might not be obvious here is this model is created, it's created to scale in realistic proportions. But looking at it from this angle, if you look at the lines of the two gables, it would be easy to believe that those roofs are two different pitches, and just the perspective in the drawing makes them look a little different. But if you look a little closer, you can see that the spans are dramatically different. This one is over 17 feet, and this one's almost 26. And what that means is when you orbit the model around and look closer, this is a lower pitch, it's a wider, flatter roof, and if we spin around to this other gable, you can see it's pretty steep. And what I did is I just used an arbitrary ridge height, and I used complex numbers. This 17-foot 2 5/8 span is kind of silly, and regular architecture that'd probably be an even 17 feet or 17'6". And then the roof pitch, I made it 10 5/8 and 12, and that's pretty uncommon and not very necessary in most conditions. But the reason I did it that way is to show off how it doesn't matter to SketchUp what the angles are. When you use this method, that could be a 7/12, 8/12, 10, 11/12 pitch, doesn't matter. I made it a complex measurement to emphasize the point that all the dimensions and everything that are figured out on this model, it's irrelevant to SketchUp how uncommon the dimensions are. This one I put a 7 3/32 12 pitch. How about that? You drive your carpenters nuts if you pull that on them. But the point is, even though from certain angles you get the idea that this is just a typical gable framing with equal spans, which would naturally yield in a result in a common ridge height. But in this case, the pitches are different, and so the framing is different. And I've created a couple other just generic models to discuss this a little bit further. And this just plain box model here, it's the same dimensions. This L shape is the same dimensions within reason as the complete model. But what I've done here is I put the same roof pitch on each of the gables. So this angle here, if we grab the protractor tool, from level, this is about 26.6 degrees. And this other gable over here is the same thing. I'll pivot around here and show you that this is the same, about 26.6 degrees. I don't remember what roof pitch that was. But this is what that other model would look like if the two roofs, the two gables, were the same pitch. The ridge heights aren't at equal heights at all. But when you look at the model from the top, the angle of the hip, if we put the protractor tool on a horizontal plane, hold down the shift key, and then take it up here to the ridge and click. Let's see, let's go straight out this way, and then if we hover over this point, you can see that the hip as well as the valley are framed at 45 degrees because the pitches of the roofs are the same, although the spans are different. And that yields this false hip geometry in here. And so in most conditions, most architectural demands, this is just the way the roof gets framed. It has a 6 or 7 12 pitch roof. Everything's equal. You have 45-degree hip and valley framing, pretty typical. But once in a while, an architect or an owner will demand that the ridge lines are the same elevation. So that's how we get into this off-angle hip framing situation. And to show that a little more clearly and some of the things that are involved, we'll move over to this blank box here, and I'll show you how this works. And with most framing, the two slopes of the roof are equal, meaning that the ridge is centered up in the span. So making that assumption for this model, I'm just going to take the line tool excuse me, and hover over the midpoint of this span. I'm going to move it in the red direction, hold down the shift key, and then index to the center of this other span. You can see how SketchUp made the line jump to it. Now I'm drawing a line to this center point. So looking straight down on the model, you can see that I have what would represent the center of the ridge lines of this model. But what I'm going to do is select those two lines and grab the move tool, and I'm just going to move this up in the blue axis. You can see the blue dotted line there, and the little box is on blue axis. And let's just go up 10 feet. Let's go 8 feet. Looks a little more reasonable there. Okay. So now you can see that if we turn the model, these two gables almost look like they're the same pitch from this angle, but we know they're not because the spans are different. So that makes these a different slope. If we take the protractor tool again here and go from horizontal, I don't want to move it, I just want to measure it. So let's grab the protractor instead of the move tool. Hold down shift here and click. You can see that this one is 31.9 degrees, and this one is, oh, there I did it again, grab the right idea, wrong tool. Go to horizontal, click up, this is 43.0 degrees, so you can see that those two are different slopes. And it seems like everything should be the same but as the other models, but when you pivot this and look straight down from the top, now you can see that the hip and valley line up. They don't have the false hip and valley configuration like over here where the hip and valley don't line up, but they do line up here. And the way that's accomplished is, if we take this protractor tool again and hold down the shift key to index it in the horizontal plane, you can see that rather than 45 degrees, this hip and valley runs through at 33.7 degrees. But the ridge heights are equal. So that's kind of how the various elements come together here. And a model that I didn't draw would be a model that's L-shaped, only the two spans are the same. If the two spans are the same, let's see if we can do that here relatively quickly. This is just going to take this dimension, and I drew this out at 25 foot 8 3/8. So if we take this, and let's just grab this geometry and start moving it. What we want to end up with is, by moving this geometry horizontally till we end up at 25 foot 8 3/8. So let's just go over here and see if I can get it to land at an even number. Now let's just grab it some more. 25 foot 8 3/8. That didn't do it because that's only taking half of it. Let's see. I'm going to go back a couple steps here. Yeah, I think we'd probably have to do something like this and scale this geometry. Let's see if this will. Nope, that's not going to do it either. One more step here, then I'll give up. Let's just grab all this and the scale tool and see if we can pull this out to 25 foot 8 3/8. And it's hard to get it to line up. Okay, so we got 7/16. Now I'm going to go to, oops, let's go back. That's pretty darn close. And so I think what result we should have here is that the ridge heights are same, the spans are the same for all intents and purposes. And so if we now measure, excuse me, remeasure our hip angle, it says about 45 degrees. That's because the span is off by a 1/16 of an inch. But that just shows what happens when the spans are the same and the roof pitches are the same. So with that explanation of how this off-angle hip framing is generated and kind of the why, I'm going to end this video, and then in the second part we'll peel back the framing in this roof. You can see I put pretty much every rafter and every component of this roof in here, and we'll peel this roof open a little bit and take a look at what all that looks like. So I'll end this here. Check out the second part of the A Tale of Two Pitches roof framing video.